witnessed something unimaginable. A short, silent video appeared online, showing a man suffocating two helpless kittens inside a household vacuum cleaner. No name, no location, just two kittens and a relentless machine. Within hours, horror and outrage rippled through social media. Viewers recoiled, but they couldn't look away. By the next day, a small band of strangers on Facebook had formed a private group with one mission: bring this cruel killer to justice. They called themselves Find the Kitten Vaccumer for Great Justice. Little did they know, this hunt would lead them and the world to a far darker crime than anyone could predict. The hunt began with 3 short videos, each one a calculated act of cruelty. But the volunteers in the Facebook group refused to be passive spectators. They became a crowdsourced detective agency working around the clock, across continents. Every single frame of the grainy footage was dissected. They created shared spreadsheets, assigning tasks and tracking leads. They obsessed over the details, the distinct pattern of the carpet, the cheap-looking purple shower curtain, and most importantly, a bright yellow Dirt Devil vacuum cleaner. One member, an expert in appliance resale, recognized it as a model sold almost exclusively in North America. That single clue narrowed a global search down to a continent. Hearts raced. They scraped archival data from retail catalogs and old Craigslist ads, confirming the vacuum's make and model. The real breakthrough came from a completely separate photo the killer had posted of himself online. A tech-savvy member managed to download the original file and discovered its hidden data, the EXIF metadata. Buried in the code were the exact GPS coordinates of a specific apartment in Etobicoke, Toronto, where the photo was taken. It was the digital fingerprint he'd forgotten to wipe clean. Week after week, they built their case, convinced their monster was hiding in plain sight. They packaged everything: the vacuum analysis, the GPS data, the network of aliases, into a detailed dossier and sent it to the Toronto police. The response was deflating. A polite but dismissive, "We'll look into it." To the authorities, it was just another wild tip from the internet. But for these armchair detectives, the dismissal was fuel. This was only the beginning. The police might not have been convinced, but for the Facebook group, the GPS data was the key. Scouring social media and public records connected to that Toronto address, they searched for a face that matched the man in the videos. Soon, they found one. A face connected to a bizarre and fame-hungry digital ghost who went by many names. But one kept surfacing: Luka Magnotta. They finally had a name for their monster, but posting it in the group didn't lead to a swift arrest. It was like ringing a dinner bell. Just as the group felt they were closing in, the prey began to fight back. Luka Magnotta, or one of his many alter egos, was not just a killer. He was an audience-obsessed puppet master. He created an army of fake online profiles, using them to infiltrate the very Facebook group hunting him. Under anonymous names, he would join the conversation, leaving chilling, taunting messages. "You're looking in the wrong country." "Nice detective work, amateurs. You'll never catch me." It was psychological warfare fought with digital smoke and mirrors. He would post new videos, sometimes portraying himself as a loving pet owner, to sow confusion and create infighting among the group members. He deliberately planted false clues, using a Russian song in one video, a specific landmark in the background of another, sending the sleuths on expensive and time-consuming wild goose chases. Every time the group celebrated a new lead, Magnotta was one step ahead, watching their every move. He would mock their progress on his various blogs, reveling in the attention. This twisted cat-and-mouse game wasn't just about evasion, it was about control.
He was addicted to the notoriety, pushing the boundaries to see how far his pursuers would follow him down a hall of mirrors he had built himself. For 18 months, the internet detectives had warned that the men obsessed with killing kittens would escalate. On May 24, 2012, their worst fears were realized in the most horrific way imaginable. His victim was Jun Lin, a hopeful 33-year-old international student from Wuhan, China, studying at Montreal's Concordia University. Friends described him as kind and ambitious. He disappeared after arranging a date with a man he met online. That man was Luka Magnotta. Within days, Magnotta uploaded a new video to the internet. Titled "One Lunatic, One Ice Pick," the 11-minute clip showed the graphic, unspeakable murder and dismemberment of Jun Lin. Soon after, a suitcase containing his torso was found in a Montreal alley. His hands and feet were mailed to the headquarters of Canada's political parties and to 2 schools in Vancouver. The crime wasn't just murder, it was a grotesque performance for the entire world. The name Luka Magnotta exploded across global headlines. For the sleuths in the Facebook group, there was no vindication, only horror. The monster they had been hunting in the digital shadows had stepped into the real world and committed a crime beyond anyone's darkest predictions. With the suspect's identity confirmed, the hunt for Luka Magnotta went global. Interpol issued a red notice, flagging him as one of the most wanted fugitives in the world. His face was everywhere. But Magnotta was a ghost in the system, slipping out of Montreal on a flight to Paris under a false name just 1 day after the murder. For days, he moved through Europe like a phantom, a step ahead of law enforcement. The international dragnet tightened. Police in France and Germany tracked his digital and financial breadcrumbs, narrowly missing him at hotels and bus stations. Yet Magnotta's greatest weakness was the very thing that drove his crimes, his insatiable ego. He couldn't resist watching his own infamy unfold. He began frequenting internet cafes, obsessively searching his own name and reading the news coverage about the global manhunt for the Canadian psycho. On June 4th, an employee at an internet cafe in Berlin recognized the man from a newspaper. The tip was quiet and precise. Undercover officers entered the cafe, finding him engrossed in his own media storm. There was no grand finale. He looked up, the chase finally over. In a near whisper, he surrendered, "You got me." Extradited back to Canada, the courtroom in Montreal became the stage for Luka Magnotta's final desperate performance. His defense pleaded not guilty, claiming he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia and was manipulated by an abusive figure named Manny. But the prosecution, led by Louis Boutillier, dismantled this narrative piece by piece. The prosecution argued that Magnotta's kitten videos weren't just a cry for attention, they were a rehearsal. They presented a chilling, well-documented pattern of escalation, a path walked by notorious killers like Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy, whose violent careers also began with acts of animal cruelty. Following this, they presented evidence of meticulous planning: the camera purchased to film the murder, the online registration of the video's title months in advance, and the calculated mailing of the packages. The trial took a landmark turn when the internet detectives themselves were called to the stand. Their testimony established Magnotta's years-long pattern of manipulation and thirst for fame, proving his actions were not a sudden psychotic break. Throughout the proceedings, Jun Lin's father, Darren Lin, sat in the gallery, a portrait of quiet dignity, forced to hear the unspeakable details of his son's death. On December 23, 2014, after 8 days of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict: guilty on all 5 counts, including first-degree murder. The sentence was automatic and absolute: life in prison with no possibility of parole for 25 years. The case left deep scars, but for Jun Lin's family and for the nation, it was finally justice. What began as a macabre cat video evolved into one of the most notorious manhunts of the digital age. Strangers united online, armed with nothing but screenshots and metadata, helped bring a killer to justice. Yet the case reveals a harsher truth, that anonymity can mask unspeakable cruelty, and fame can be more intoxicating than empathy. In an age of viral content, the story of Luka Magnotta is a chilling warning about our digital footprints. But the story of the hunt is a testament to shared decency. And the memory of Jun Lin is a tragic reminder of the human cost when online obsession escapes the screen. It reminds us that behind every click, every share, and every headline, there are real lives. And some traces should never be forgotten.